Shalom, everyone. Rabbi Derek here, Beth Messiah Synagogue, back with you again for another day of counting the Omer. Today is Omer Day 40. It's 5 weeks and 5 days of counting the Omer. And the 40th day of counting the Omer is a significant one because we find in Acts chapter 1, first chapter of the book of Acts, that this is the day that Yeshua ascended to the kingdom. In Acts 1, it talks about the fact that his ministry post his resurrection. So if his resurrection was on the day after the Sabbath of the Passover, that's the first day of the counting of the Omer, he resurrected, and then his ministry in that time lasted 40 days. So on this 40th day of counting the Omer is the day when later on in Acts chapter 1, we see Yeshua ascending into the kingdom. And of course, his followers are there and they're looking to the skies, and there's these heavenly messengers there and saying, why do you keep looking up? He's going to come back in the same way that he came. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it sets up the season of life that humanity is in now in hopeful expectation for his return. So we celebrate the fact, without the Ascension is part of Yeshua's atoning work for us, right? It's his death, his burial, his resurrection, and his ascension, because him being in the kingdom is what's going to allow him to bring the kingdom in his return. It's very, very exciting. As we're going through Matthew today, I want to take a look at Matthew 19. So if you look at that with me, Matthew 19, this is verses 13 through 15. It says, then some children were brought to him so that he would lay his hands on them and pray. And the disciples rebuked them. But Yeshua said, leave the children alone and do not forbid them to come to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. And after laying hands on them, he departed from there. So, of course, we read a version of that every Shabbat in our synagogue, right before we have the children's blessing. Of course, we lay out the canopy, the large talit that we have. Everyone comes under for a blessing. And this is the way that we read it, because Yeshua is saying, let the little children come to me and don't hinder them. So this passage really, it follows on from yesterday's theme. If you haven't seen yesterday's devotional, I encourage you to take a look at that. But we talked yesterday about Yeshua's radical and intense love and his desire for us as his followers, as his children, to have childlike faith, pure, strong, childlike faith. And it's actually not just these verses here in Matthew 19 that illustrate that fact. In fact, all 4 of the major parts of Matthew 19 are about having pure faith. Take a look. In the first 12 verses, we're not going to read them all, but in the first 12 verses of Matthew 19, Yeshua is in a discourse about marriage and divorce. He's being asked questions about it. And he describes marriage as a process of giving up your single identity, who you were prior to being married, for a totally new reality. And this is the same way that he views our life of faith as he describes it throughout the scriptures. It's not holding on to who we were before, of course, but living and walking in a totally new definition. So just like a married person is no longer the single version of themselves, they and their spouse are one, a single entity in a way, who we are post putting our faith in Yeshua is not at all the same person who we are. We don't have to hold on to the things from the past, the definitions of the past, none of it. We're walking in a new reality. And then we have verses 13 and 15 that we just read about not stopping the children from coming to him. And these children are a picture, as we said, of pure faith. And they're an object lesson for the adults who were there, who tried to, keep order or whatever they were doing, trying to maybe say that they weren't important enough to bother the rabbi. And Yeshua set that clear, that there's no airs about him. He doesn't only entertain people of a certain stature or place in life or anything like that. These children came to him, and he was saying that the kingdom belongs to ones like these. These are the ones that we should want to be like, not the people of notoriety or of fame or strength or talent necessarily, but those of a pure faith. That's amazing. Then starting in verse 16 all the way through 26, same chapter, Matthew 19, we have the story of the rich young man, or the rich young ruler, as it's said in some translations. And Yeshua challenged him and allowed him to see for himself what he trusted most in his life was not his faith, but was his wealth, right? He told him to go sell all of his possessions, and he went away sad because it says he owned a lot of land. This wasn't a command for all believers to abandon their possessions. Yeshua wasn't saying, hey, look, this is what it takes to follow me, specifically for everybody. Go sell everything you have. He was illustrating for this man and for all of those listening that to trust him in faith, it must be the greatest level of trust that you have. It can't be number 2 or number 3. Trust and hope in nothing and in no one else. That's what he was trying to illustrate with the rich young man. And then finally, in the last couple of verses of the chapter, verses 27 through 29, Yeshua explains that those who gave up things for the sake of the kingdom will be exalted. It's worthy. It's valuable. It's meaningful. And this isn't a works thing. Yeshua doesn't need us to impress him with our giving or by going without. I promise you, there's really nothing that you can do to impress him. He already loves you the most. We don't need to change his mind on us, because when the Father looks at us, he sees Yeshua. We've been covered completely and made completely new. So it's not about giving in a way to, make ourselves more spiritually mature or anything like that. He's simply saying, he's acknowledging rather, that trusting him and walking by faith is costly. It's costly, and costly in different ways for different people. But ultimately that cost is worth it. Whatever the cost, he paid the ultimate cost for us. We are valuable in his sight, and following him, although it may be costly to us, maybe it will cost us relationships or status or, the trajectory of your life. I'll tell you, the trajectory of my life is something I could have never guessed prior to coming to know Yeshua. The walk of faith that I have and the choices I make in my life as a result are not the choices I would have made had I not come to know him. So it's costly, but it's worth it. So he's calling us and reminding us and showing us and teaching us and loving us towards understanding better that we are to trust him above all else. Give him your life. Give him all of it. Don't define yourself by anything else. Don't trust in anything else. Don't hang on to anything any longer. Give it all to him. It's your new definition in faith by Yeshua and what he's done alone. All right, I hope you're encouraged by that, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Shalom.